I'm Steve Chu. I'm the director of Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, professor of physics and molecular cell biology at Berkeley.
And a Nobel Prize winner. I'm Dan Reicher. I'm director of climate change and energy initiatives at google.org.
I'm Don O'Shea. I'm chief executive officer of AltaRock Energy. Traditional hydrothermal systems are a little bit along the oil and gas model. There are existing pockets of steam deep in the earth or superheated water, and you drill down, you find them, you bring it to the surface, you run it through a power plant, and you re-inject it. And so effectively, you're taking advantage of a naturally occurring situation in order to produce clean energy. What we're trying to do in EGS is to effectively man-make what's traditionally been a naturally occurring system and man-make it from the surface using techniques to fracture the rock. We'll then inject water from the surface, which will be heated, brought back up, and produce the same type of energy that you would from traditional geothermal, except in a lot more places, and hopefully over time more economically.
So to add to that, I think everywhere you go there's hot rock below. But you need several things. You need heat near the surface, but you need a porosity in the rock, and you need a water source. And with modern techniques of fracturing rock and the ability to pump water down and extract it, you eliminate some of the things that we didn't have. Geothermal in the United States is only 0.3% of our energy, electrical energy output, and it could easily go to 10, maybe even 20%. Well, you'll get different answers from different people. Why don't you take it from the industrialist first, and I'll tell you why there are some interesting research questions before it's going to be really bankable, off-the-shelf, guaranteed to work. Unless you want me to go first, I don't know.
No, I don't mind going first. I think there's the question is really one more of economics than technology, in the sense, although the two are obviously closely related. There have been in several locations where these types of fractures have been created and energy's been extracted in the form of steam or steam turned into electricity, hot water turned into electricity. So that's been done to some extent. The question is, can the technology enable you to create a sufficient volume of this fractured rock that you'll be able to, for the relatively high fixed cost of the wells, produce the electricity at a price that the market will buy? And so what we're working on now are technologies that will allow us to create 2, 3, or 4 times the volume of fractured rock than previously has been done, and that will, we believe, allow us to sell the electricity at a market price.
One thing that gives me some optimism, actually, is that if you look at the cost of EGS based on just a couple of projects around the world right now, the costs are coming in somewhere between, at the low end, the cost of coal, and at the high end, the cost of photovoltaics, solar photovoltaics. So we're already within a range of today's energy systems. And so we're not starting at an outlandish point. And I think with technological development, with the scale that new large companies can bring to this, and frankly with some serious policy from Washington, I think we can come down this cost curve in fairly rapid pace. And frankly, we need to do this, and we need to do this with respect to several other technologies if we're going to deal with some of our major global problems, from energy security to the global climate crisis.
Of renewable energies, this is a bankable renewable energy. It's a 24/7 source of energy. And I think many people don't realize when renewables, transient renewables like solar and wind, get to 10, 20, 30%, we have a major issue. We don't have embedded, installed in our grid system how to manage two-way flows, how to manage when the clouds go over the solar fields and all of a sudden there's going to be a brownout for 20 minutes. So the very reliable clean energy is an important part of this. It's an essential part of this portfolio until we get energy storage.
Well, we've described this as potentially the killer app of the energy world, and I think that view really reflects the fact that EGS is a resource that literally could be developed anywhere on the planet. If you drill deep enough, you get to hot rock. If you can fracture it and put water down there and bring it back up, you can make steam and turn a turbine. There's a lot of technological challenge in that. But so you start with a very, very ubiquitous resource. You go from there to the fact that it is, in fact, 24-hour power. It's 24/7. So, and that's critical going forward to complement the intermittent sources like solar and wind. So that gives you the second piece of this. And just the scale that we could get to, you know, the size of the resource, not only in the U.S., but in China and in India and in Europe. And lastly, you know, we do think there's real progress to be made coming down the cost curve. So you put all those things together, and it really could be the killer app of the energy world. The jury's still out. We got a long way to go, but there's great promise here.
One of the great things about EGS, and it's part of why you know, I think we're all pretty excited about it, is that most of what happens in EGS happens under the ground and very deep. So from the typical human impact on human perspective, the surface footprint's pretty small. You can run a number of wells off of a single pad, which is, you know, a couple of acres. You can look at power plants. You know, the power plant sites, they don't have boilers, they don't have fuel storage, they don't have all those things. So compared to traditional power plants, they're small, and for the size of power you get out of them, they're also pretty low impact. You're going to be putting basically potable water down into the ground, you know, effectively drinking, you know, regular surface drinking water kind of quality down into the ground and taking it back up. Now it's quite likely that you'll pick up some mineral solution, you know, while you're going through the process, but compared to traditional hydrothermal fluids that have been underground the ground for thousands and millions of years and have picked up all kinds of chemicals and gases in solution in them, they're going to be relatively clean fluids. And so we think in general the surface impacts are going to be among the lowest among the potential choices for renewable, or certainly for fossil, but also for renewable energy.
I'd actually like to elevate the NIMBY debate a little bit from why should we be against this technology is to a broader, what are the substitute technologies? I would rather have enhanced geothermal in my backyard than a coal plant. Without question, most Americans don't realize that the radioactivity released from a coal plant, if you trap 99.5% of the fly ash, which contains uranium and thorium, still releases about 30 times more radioactivity than a nuclear plant. Okay, forget about and then, oh yeah, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, mercury, particulate matter that gives you lung cancer and asthma and everything else. So you should weigh that against unsightly wind. I personally think it's not unsightly, but what minor impacts there could be in geothermal, everything. Just, it's not what are you for? It's not what you're against. You can be against anything.
Yeah. One of the nice things about EGS compared to some of the other potential competitors for the energy market is that it's relatively flexible in location. I mean, it's obviously not completely flexible. There are better places and worse places, but compared to some of the alternatives, it's more flexible, and so you're able to deal a little better with, you know, impacts and competing resources and other things in a way you can't with some of the other technologies.
There's also another type of EGS that is totally unproven. It's just a gleam in the eye of a bunch of scientists in my lab and other labs. And that is, you might want to site it next to a coal plant. And the idea is you take the carbon dioxide from a coal plant, you inject it into the ground. Instead of using potable water, which could be precious, you're going to lose some of the water. You can inject the carbon dioxide. Instead of being a waste product, which you might be, with the price on this, it becomes an income-producing product.
And that's a good example of why, frankly, if there was more government R&D support, we could accelerate areas like that and a whole host of other things that could really move the R&D side of this forward. And, frankly, also from the government side, you know, there's a set of things the government could be doing in terms of loan guarantees, secondary markets for loans, a whole host of things that would really help projects like this move forward, particularly the higher risk early projects that tend to be the hardest to raise capital for.